Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News Radio, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Channel, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, iTunes, TuneIn, Tiki Live, Rumble, and more. And why? Because I want the maximum splatter zone for you to feel hope and happiness. That's why I have topics and guests to that end, and I'm so happy and delighted that today is no exception. And after our first break, after our gratitudes, I'm going to bring her back, and she's going to talk to us about all kinds of things that are hope and happiness related. Now, you also know that we start every show with taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. So that's the way to start the day in the most positive way. So I'm going to start real quick, and I'm only going to do 3 today because I want to get my guest on. So my top 3 gratitudes are, number 1, I live in California, so the weather is almost always amazing and wonderful. And number 2, that I get to use technology to the utmost and be in 2 places at one time, because y'all know I'm visiting my mom who has Parkinson's and in Canada, and I wasn't able to go during the pandemic. So I'm there visiting, but thanks to technology, I get to bring you Dr. Tiffanie Moore as well at the same time. And then number 3, that there's a place you can come now to balance out all the bad news that's out there as soon as you open your eyes and you start scrolling, which I don't want you to do. I want you to instead start the day with your gratitudes that will keep your focus on those things that are good. So hopefully you have also done your 8 gratitudes for the day. Do them typed or with someone that's in the room with you. And then if you're a parent, it's a wonderful way to start the day with your kids on the way to school. I know that my 2 beautiful inside and out daughters are positive and doing so well. Sarah's just finishing up at UC Davis, so I'll have 2 kids out of college. And I know their kindness is because we started with gratitudes when they were small. And then finally, at the end of the day today, I will not be there at your bedside to see if you do this honor system. But you remember, I want you to appreciate 3 things about yourself. I do 8. We're starting you slow. But I want you to do 3 things that you like about yourself, because that will balance out the desire to think about what we usually think about if we're not practicing this muscle or this discipline, which is what's wrong with people, why didn't I get this done, who interrupted me, who insulted me, and no wonder you can't sleep. So this is why I want you to 3 things that you really like about yourself and you can credit yourself with. So my 3 for tonight, I'll give you a preview. I'm going to say that I am funny, even though my husband said that I wasn't. Number 2, that I am resourceful and find great guests for you. And number 3, that I am resilient. And no matter how many times my mom told me to not speak up, and that my Chinese culture is the nail that stands up is hammered down, and I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing, that I do it anyways. All right, so gratitude sandwich for all of you for tonight. We'll be right back with my very special guest, Dr. Tiffanie Moore, when we return on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Welcome to Balanced Tai Chi Gong. My name is Dr. Marissa Pei. We will be slow dancing with the universe in a moving meditation that promotes inner peace, one breath at a time. As a corporate psychologist, I created this practice in response to my life and those of my clients. We were professional, high achievement-oriented, multitasking control freaks and exhausted. No matter how many successes, it was never enough. That, coupled with a painful life experience, led me on a quest to find another way to live and back to my Chinese roots. If you practice regularly, you will be in a place of balance and inner peace, the way we were created. 谢谢. Want delicious Vietnamese Asian fusion cuisine that is so good for your health you won't believe your taste buds? Olac is a 100% plant-based vegan restaurant founded by Mai on living foods and a love for animals that won't make you sacrifice taste for health. 2 locations to delight you, downtown LA and Fountain Valley. So go to www.olac.com, AULAC, to book your reservation today. Saving the planet has never tasted so good.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome back. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio, station AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, including my YouTube channel, where you can get all past 680 shows now. Ooh, unbelievable, going on 9 years, as well as my red carpet playlist with fabulous people like Halle Berry, John Travolta, Quincy Jones, and even Carol Baskin. So that's my YouTube channel. It is a free subscribe, and if you do, you'll get an alert at 8 in the morning that I'm coming on with some fabulous guests. And today I have Dr. Tiffanie Tate Moore, who's a veteran medical officer of the United States Navy and a board certified obstetrician. I said OBGYN because I can't pronounce that word. She's originally from Compton, California. She repeatedly overcame insurmountable odds to achieve her goals, exhibiting resilience. She was medically retired and had to reinvent herself, which gave rise to her becoming an author and writing her first book, FloweTry, a collection of 108 poetic flows on life, love, and liturgical issues. We're definitely going to have some and welcome, Dr. Tiffanie. What, you wrote a bio that I have to practice my pronunciation on, but welcome to the show. And I'm so delighted to have you. Can't wait to ask you about a lot of the interesting things and insurmountable things, because wow, you already have had quite the life. You look way too young to have had all of those things. You must use oil of Olay.
Thank you, Dr. Marissa, for having me. It really is a pleasure to be here talking with you after you having been able to talk to such esteemed guests.
Oh, well, everybody is esteemed. All 7.3 billion of us are one of a kind, wonderful, and you are absolutely no exception. So let's start with, wow, Navy, okay? Navy is already not something a lot of women, okay? So that was the first one I went, oh, medical officer in the Navy and a board certified obstetrician, I got it, and gynecologist. That's 2. Originally from Compton, straight out of Compton. Okay, so all 3 of those things don't usually go along. So
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
start. Let's start there. Goodness gracious. You grew up in Compton, and the perception from the stereotypes and the things you hear about what's true and what's not true about Compton.
Well, sadly, a lot of the violence that you hear about in Compton is true, but what you don't hear about in Compton is about the community and the love. And there's a lot of love and there's a lot of sense of community. And that is definitely true. The sad part is that there was a lot of violence, especially in the 80s, and there was a lot of drugs, especially in the 70s and 80s. So much so that my parents did not raise me. My mother and father, they broke up when I was still an infant. They were both addicted to drugs. My aunt actually raised me. I was raised by my Auntie May since I was about 2 years old. My parents broke up, and my father was essentially homeless and on drugs, and I never met him probably till after. Actually, I never met him till after he had died, and I claimed his body from the prison system, and that was another story. And so, yeah, it's I have lots of stories. And so, but my mother, she was my aunt's sister, and so I witnessed her struggle with drug addiction, and she was a pinnacle of resilience because she continued to be in and out of rehab. But she was always in my life, and she always tried. But when she was on drugs, she would be verbally abusive towards me. She tried, and she tried to love me as best she could, but I always knew I was still loved by her. But it was still a difficult childhood. And I always thought, well, if I was a better kid, maybe she would love me more than she loved drugs. So I tried to study harder and focus on my education and be a better kid. So I kind of used that as a way to motivate myself. My aunt, she had 2 children of her own, and she took me as her 3rd child. Now, she would have different boyfriends, and they weren't very happy that I was her bonus child. So let's just say that did not always go over so well. And some of them were very abusive towards me. And sometimes they were abusive towards her daughter as well. And that actually led to me writing a children's book that's going to come out later this year about how to teach children how to report abuse, because I never reported the abuse that I endured as a child until I got to about 40 years of age. And I think that that is something that children don't really know how to do. And it's something that children should be educated on, because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of stigma that goes into that. But as a child growing up in Compton, there was a lot of love there. There was a lot of support there, but there was also a lot of poverty there. And my aunt worked at a supermarket, so we always had food. So while we did not have a lot of money, we weren't rich, we weren't exceedingly poor, we always had food. And she would always come home with food because she had worked at a supermarket. So when other kids in the neighborhood were hungry, I would always feed them. So she would come home and be like, "Where's all the food?" And I would never say a word because I'd given it all away to all the other kids in the neighborhood. That was my dirty little secret.
I see. Well, kids could get into a lot worse than helping other kids who were hungry. So I'm just already impressed. We haven't even barely scratched the surface, but I'm just going to give this to you now, just based on what you said. Because one of the things that I value the most in my guests is their ability to take things that were not great in their own lives and turn it into something helpful. So the fact that you turned your own abuse when you were a child, and you're one of the 7 out of 10 of us who have had childhood trauma, the fact that you took that and turned it into something like a children's book to help kids report it is, I've never heard that, and I'm rarely like surprised, but I'm so heartened by that I'm giving you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award.
Okay.
And I don't give that to all my guests.
Thank you.
I think that is one of the best ideas I've heard in a long time, because I also did not know how to report it. I didn't know what to say. You know, I just thought that was what happened in families, right?
Yeah,
And,
it's unfortunate because sometimes if you tell a family member, a lot of times they're too embarrassed and they don't want it to get out. And they say, well, don't tell, keep it a secret. But if you tell someone at school, anyone at school people, whether it's the cafeteria person, a counselor, a teacher, they are mandatory reporters and they must report it. And so it talks to the kids, and it tells them who are safe people to actually report it to and how to report it. And it helps them identify what's bad touching, what's bad talking, you know, how to identify what's bad behavior and how to go about reporting it. And so it should be coming out later this year. And it's also through Christian Faith Publishing, the people who published my poetry book. And so I think it's going to be a good book and a good educational resource for kids as well as for families. And I'm hoping it will have a positive impact on society. And my goal is always to try to make the world a better place. So while I can't do it as a practicing physician anymore, I just want my life to have a positive impact again.
Oh, wonderful. And you'll come back. I'll have you back when you launch that book for sure.
Thank you.
So you're under horrific growing up circumstances. What would you say gave you the resilience and the fortitude to avoid the regular route for children who feel like they don't belong anywhere because their parents obviously chose drugs over them? Your aunt also did. What was it that kept you from trying to feel better using your own drugs and alcohol or whatever it is? What can you, looking back, I know that this is, armchair quarterback, but what do you think helped you more than survive, but gave you that light to move in a direction that was to go to med school?
Well, I know because I saw how drugs and alcohol destroyed my family. It was a deterrent for me to use drugs and alcohol. So it was easy to not use that. It was like, that's just not the road I will go. Mm-hmm. And when I turned to education, it made me focus. So I was able to graduate from elementary school as valedictorian. So I kind of focused on education, and it was like all those commercials about education being the key to your future. So I was like, okay, I wanted those keys. So I just threw myself into my education. And when I went to middle school, I was just steadfast. I was focused. When I went to middle school, I went with a briefcase. I was that kid. I was about business. I was that little weirdo. And so I was all in, and I threw myself into everything, and I found God. And I can say, well, God found me, and I joined the Christian Fellowship Club and everything. And my cousin, my aunt's son, my cousin, he would be my cuz bro, like my brother, essentially. He started dating a woman who was very into church, and I would to church with her. And we were actually at a home Bible study and in Compton, and it was around the 4th of July, and we heard some popping. And usually in Compton, when you hear popping, you think drive-by and everybody dives to the ground. Well, this was a time, because it was near the 4th of July, we were thinking, oh, it was fireworks. Well, at this time, it wasn't fireworks. It was actually a drive-by shooting. And so, well, as we went diving to the ground, I didn't dive fast enough and I got hit by a bullet in my back. And so when I got up, my back was hurting and she started pointing at me and she was crying. And I reached around and I looked at my hand and I had all this blood on my hand. And, you know, she was like, Tiffanie, you've been shot. And I was like, oh my God, I've been shot. And
How old were you?
I was in high school.
Okay.
And I was up walking around. And when the paramedics responded, they were like, you shouldn't be walking around. You should be paralyzed or worse. And so it was a blessing for me because I was like, okay, this was actually a miracle. So I knew that God had his hand on me. Yeah. And I had been volunteering with my church's mission in the city of Los Angeles. And when we would volunteer with the mission, I would see the sickly and the homeless. And I knew my father was homeless. And I thought maybe I'd been serving him unaware. And I knew that I wanted to serve people. And that's when I had the desire to help and to serve. And I figured, well, I couldn't serve the people all the time. So maybe I would become a physician and help sickly people. So that was when I first decided that I might become a physician at that time. So it was through volunteering with my church's mission that I had that desire. And so
let's go back to the bullet. So, so it was a miracle you weren't paralyzed. How long were you in the hospital?
That was the thing. It was truly a miracle. They patched me up. I refused medical care because they wanted to take me to the local community hospital. And I didn't have to have surgery. The bullet came through the house, through the sofa, and it hit me. And it hit me. It stopped right at me. It just hit me. You can see the mark. And they were like, well, we want to go in and find the bullet inside of you. They said, we think it's in you. I said, well, if I'm up and I'm walking around, it can stay. And you can see it came through the house, it came through the sofa, and you can see the hole, and you can see it. It came through the house, it came through the sofa, and you can see the bullet, and you can see the blood coming out of me. And
they didn't see the bullet at that point?
No.
In the couch?
No, it came through. It came through the sofa.
It came through the sofa, but it did go straight through you? It stopped at you. It stopped. Yeah. So where was the bullet?
They believed the bullet was in me.
Okay, but where was the bullet?
They believed the bullet was in me.
I know, but where was it actually?
They never found it.
You have a bullet in you right now?
We never, that's the thing. We never had surgery. I never had surgery, I said.
Yeah, but they did an x-ray. They would have been able to see a bullet if there's a bullet in you.
I didn't go to the hospital per se. I refused medical care. I was a teenager.
I'm going to come over and put like a magnet behind you to see if there's any like movement. This is like unbelievable. But yeah, that miracle would be understatement. Okay.
Yeah, I was a kid. I refused medical care. And they let me because I was a foolish kid. And so they put a pressure dressing on me and I refused medical care and they let me. So.
And you haven't had any problems where you would want to go and check?
I mean, I have chronic back pain.
Okay. Well, since then, have you had someone look at it to see if there's a bullet there?
No. I don't want to know because I don't want surgery. Deny.
You take resilience to a whole new level, Tiffanie. I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment. I can't take I'm still leaving you with the award, but come on. All right. So, okay. Next. So you become a doctor. That'll serve me right for coming back to the bullet. Okay, so you become a medical doctor, an OBGYN.
Yes. So I become an OBGYN and I I go to medical school. I joined the Navy while in medical school in Nashville, Tennessee. And while in Nashville, I actually just take a job at the Waffle House. So I'm a waitress at the Waffle House to help, make ends meet. And it's a wonderful time serving in the United States Navy. I do my internship at Naval Medical Center, San Diego, and I go and join the Navy to see the world. And I get stationed at Naval Base Ventura County in Port Hueneme, right up under Santa Barbara. And so it's a wonderful time. And we end up going to war, and it's okay. I get to mobilize lots of people, and I get to meet a lot of wonderful people who I'm still friends with. I lose a corpsman in war, and that was a very difficult time. But we honor him every year, and we remember his spirit and his family, and it's okay. But I still spend a lot of time and communicate with a lot of my military friends, and it's still a good time, good memories there. And I wouldn't change a thing. I loved serving my country. But after I get out of the Navy, I finished my residency at Vanderbilt in obstetrics and gynecology. And then I go into private practice as an OBGYN.
Okay.
And after that, I come back to California, and I eventually become a partner. And then I fall.
Become a partner.
A partner physician.
Okay.
I become a partner physician. And then I'm walking out of a call room trailer, and my ankle rolls and it slips between some steps. And I do a butterfly fall, take a swan dive onto the concrete, and I injure both wrists, both knees, and both ankles. And for 2 years, I am in bilateral wrist braces, bilateral knee braces, and bilateral ankle braces. And for 2 years, I am in physical therapy for both wrists, both knees, and both ankles. And I'm having steroid shots in both wrists, both knees, and both ankles. And I'm working through my injuries until I can't work anymore. And then I try to undergo surgery. And it's a rough time. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want surgery. I prefer to do surgery. I don't want to be the patient. I prefer to perform surgery. I don't want to have surgery.
Yes.
So it was a very rough time for me to decide to undergo surgery. And it was a rough time because I didn't want to be away from my patients. It's hard to be in and out and in and out, especially when you're an OBGYN, because to provide obstetric care, patients need 9 months plus postpartum care. And then to do surgery on a patient, there's preoperative care, then there's postoperative care. So you can't really have disjointed care for a patient and you yourself be a patient. It's not fair to your patients when you yourself are a patient. So it was a matter of trying to come up with a way to take care of myself and to take care of my patients. So I talked to the chief of my department, and so I decided to overlap my surgeries to minimize my recovery time, which was probably not the brightest thing I ever decided to do. And so
You think?
Yeah. And so
Oh man, I think I'm gonna have to direct you to read a book called Codependent No More, which is for people who put everybody else's needs in front of their own.
Yeah, that would be me.
What was my first clue? We're gonna have to take a break, but we will definitely be back with my wonderful guest, Dr. Tiffanie Moore, who's telling us her life story, and quite the story it is. We're going to find out more what happened after the fall, and I'm actually going to ask her a couple of questions about that before we move on, just like I did with the bullet, and hopefully I won't regret it this time. But that's when we come back. Dr. Tiffanie Moore, her resilience story on steroids, here on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA the station that leaves no listener behind.
Well, she has been dubbed the Asian Oprah, and she just wants all of us to be happy.
Dr. Marissa, aka the Asian Oprah, says the most important thing you can choose is choosing to be happy.
You are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa.
That's the idea for Dr. Marissa Pay's new book called 8 Ways to Be Happy.
Many of us say, I am my own worst critic. Nobody's harder on me than I am. And my response to that is, stop it! Why are you doing that to yourself? You have to be your biggest fan, because if you can't at the end of the day say, I did a good job, who is? We don't have to constantly be angry at the things that are wrong. Why don't we choose to be happy about things that are right? We have the choice. That's our muscle. And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Does the news scare you in the morning? I actually take my phone and plug it in outside of my bed, because I know that when I pick it up first thing in the morning, that more often than not, what I'm swiping is not good news. Some of us have forgotten that we can actually use the most powerful tool we have, called choice, to choose whether to listen to the news or not, or where we get our news. So that's why I'm so delighted to invite you to my show, 8 a.m. every weekday morning, called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show that focuses on hope and happiness and solutions to problems, instead of just ranting and raving about what's wrong with the world and what's wrong with people. Instead, I want you to find out what is good about you, good about the world, and good about our ability to be humankind. So, please join me at 8 a.m. every weekday morning for Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no listeners behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And we're back. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, iTunes, TuneIn, Podchaser, Tiki Live, and Rumble. Why? Because I'm on a happy 88 mission. 88 million more happy people in the next 8 years. So I want the maximum splatter zone, and I want you to help me. If you'd like some free happy tip sheets, I want you to go to drmarissa.life, where you can get those when you sign up in my Happy 88 tribe, as well as find out how you can get more happy working with me, as well as maybe even come to the beach and take some Tai Chi lessons with my Chinese yoga. And you know this is a show about hope and happiness, so there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K words. no Kanye talk at all, because I want you to focus on your own reality show. So I bring guests to help you with that. Today's no exception. I have Dr. Tiffanie Moore with me in studio. Welcome back, Dr. Tiffanie. And it's been wonderful getting to know you as you tell me the incredible true life story as we're going along here, and all the things that are happening or have happened to you. So we're and we want to get through the story because I want you to talk about your book as well. So we left it off at, where were we? This incredible accident that you had. Now, okay, so before you go into what is next, I asked you when you were a child what you believed and what helped you become resilient and move through that. But at this point, between getting shot in the back and then having a fall out of nowhere, when you are in such a place, a partner in the medical firm, and everything's going well, and then you have double surgery needed health issues, really. So did you say, why God? Why me?
Yes, especially after my second knee surgery on post-op day 10, I ended up hospitalized for 4 days and 3 nights with a pericarditis. And they called a respiratory code on me. And I thought I was going to die. And I thought I was going to be intubated. And I was on the same floor that my mother was on when she died of stage 4 lung cancer. And I was like at a diagonal from the room she was on. So it was kind of like a weird piece. I was like, okay, if I'm about to die, I'm about to die. But then I was like, okay, Lord, but I began to negotiate. I said I was going to write a book. I was supposed to be writing my autobiography. If you let me out, Lord, if you deliver me from this, I will write my autobiography. I will actually follow through. So I just knew that when I got out, I was going to be writing my autobiography and I would go back to work as an OBGYN. So when I got out of the hospital, it was still a rough time. I was using a bedside commode. I was in a bedside hospital bed. I had to have a home health nurse. It was really bad. I couldn't really walk and talk. I was in pretty bad shape. And so I was like, Lord, this is not what we agreed upon. And then when I had my wrist surgery, the medications that I was on for the pericarditis would not let my wrist heal in a timely fashion. And so I was in a cast for a prolonged period of time that left my wrist immobilized for such a long period that when I finally came out of a cast, I lost full function of my right joint. And so when I came out of the cast completely, I was left with an immobile joint. So much so that right now I still don't have full function of my right wrist. And as a right-handed surgeon, that left me with the inability to perform surgery. That meant that I could no longer be a surgeon. So I was medically retired. And I was like, okay, Lord, you have jokes. This is not what we had agreed upon. You brought me way too far to not have me do what you brought me the ability to do. And so I was in a crisis. I was in a professional crisis. I was in a depression. And I was at a come to Jesus moment. And I essentially ate my feelings. I put on like 40, 50 pounds. It was terrible. I didn't have what I needed. I had a pity party. And God said, okay, Tiffanie, pity party long enough, snap out of it. Think about all the stuff I brought you out of. You are not your job. You are not your profession. Write about how good I've been. Write about all the things I brought you out of. And I began to write. And so I wrote myself out of my depression. I began to write the poetry. And that is what gave rise to my book, FloweTry. And that's the life, the love, and the liturgical issues. And I just began to write from the heart. And I would share some of the poems that I wrote with different family and different friends. And they said, you should publish this. And I said, no, I'm a doctor. I'm not a poet. And so I just blew them off. And I continued to write, and I continued to write. And I would share them with other people. And they said, no, seriously, you should publish this. And again, I said no. Eventually, I submitted my writings to a publisher, and 2 publishers were both interested. And I was like, maybe there is something to this. And that gave rise to me actually publishing the book, because they said, if this helped you, this could also help other people. And I was like, okay, well, I felt convicted. And I thought, well, I shouldn't be selfish. I do want to help people. If I can't help them as a physician, maybe I can help them in a different way.
Well, you can do both, and you have done both. And what a beautiful story that is. Once again, taking something bad that has happened to you and turning it into a blessing for others. I already gave you the award. Can't give it again. But what a wonderful, I mean, sad in so many ways, but here you are, a great example of how when bad things happen to good people, and I'm a firm believer that bad things happen to everybody because that's just life, but how we reawaken, renew from what bad things that happen. I see it as chiseling. You know, that's how sculptures are made, right? You don't have a blob of something and it's beautiful. You have to chisel it. So you got your chiseling several times, I might add, more than once. And to come up with a beautiful book of poems is wonderful. Now, would you mind sharing one?
Oh, absolutely. I actually have one I would love to share.
Oh, good.
And it's entitled, Life, It Will Get Better. Life, it will get better if you give it time. Troubles don't last forever. Just hang in there, for tomorrow the sun will shine. The storms of life will surely come, and no, they are not fun. Sometimes they make you feel low. You may not think there is nowhere else to go. The storms are there to help you grow. Jesus is with you, so please know. Life, it will get better if you give it time. Troubles don't last forever. Just hang in there, for tomorrow the sun will shine. Your testimony will come from your test. Be patient and trust in God. He can handle the rest. We already have the victory. God wants us to rely on Him so we can see. Life, it will get better if you give it time. Troubles won't last forever. Just hang in there, for tomorrow the sun will shine.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's give that a little there. Can you tell I'm into affirmation?
I love it. I love it. You know, and I think I am still being chiseled. So
Oh, we will be for the rest of our lives. But I think you've had your fair share.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say God has a wonderful sense of humor.
Doesn't he? Absolutely. I say that too. Now, let's see. Where do I want to go? There's so many places to go. So the depression. So a lot of people, you know, fall into depression or extreme sadness. The pandemic has definitely taken a lot of people down where they weren't, they may not have been depressed before and because of the losses. What would you say is sort of the process to help people out of that, you know, based on your experience and, you know, what would you advise?
I would say show yourself some compassion. And I think a lot of times we are very hard on ourselves and we don't give ourselves compassion. We have compassion for everyone else, but we don't give it to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think we really need to give it to ourselves. I really liked what you said about saying 3 things that you like about yourself. And I think it's very important to do a lot of self-affirmations. Look in the mirror and give yourself something that you love about yourself. I love Mary J. Blige's song, Good Morning Gorgeous. I think we really do need to look and find the beauty that we have within. A lot of times, all we see is the negativity. We nitpick ourselves, and all we see are our own shortcomings and our own failures. And I always talk to my children that failure stands for first attempt in learning. And if there's a first, there can be a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And numbers are infinite. And if numbers are infinite, the number of trials and failures can be infinite. So we can't put that much pressure on ourselves. And with the pandemic, if things don't go your way, it really, really is okay. So if you lost your job, there's another job around there waiting for you. If God closes a door, a window is going to open soon. If there are different opportunities that you want to try and you have a million lists and you don't know where to start, write them all down and just work through them one by one. It doesn't matter. If you don't know where to start, just start at the beginning. They say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Now, who wants to eat an elephant? I never understood that one.
But it's just, if something seems overwhelming, just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And just go for it. Take it one step at a time. Take it one day at a time. And I always say, use the acronym PUSH. PUSH. Pray until something happens. So you want to push each day. You want to push forward. And when depression comes at you, try to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. Know that whatever is happening is temporary, and tomorrow brings a new day. And what you're feeling right now is going to pass. Trust me, I have been there. I felt that I lost everything because I worked really hard after putting in 20 plus years towards becoming an obstetrician gynecologist, spending 30, 40 hours training, giving up family holidays for training, giving up children's birthdays for training, giving up family members' birthdays for training, all to have it taken away by a fall that I had no control over.
Right. Well, yeah, great advice. Whether you are prescribing to any particular religion or not, it is it is one of those, we don't learn how to soothe or approve of ourselves, maybe through no fault of anyone in particular, family systems or education, but to learn how to be compassionate with oneself, to love oneself, to care for oneself, so that we're not always looking for other people to do that for us, is such an important skill. And I would suggest that for you, it was a great chapter. I like to see life as a book, and there's so many different chapters, just like your relationships are like a book. There's so many chapters in your book of romance. So your chapter that you did so well as a doctor it was a beautiful chapter. It was just a little shorter than you had hoped it would be. But now you've got a chapter called motivational speaker. I can totally see you taking this on the road. Of author, of mom, obviously, and your kids. And I just love life. And it's so important to me that people understand that it's not just, you can do more than one thing, right? Now you were forced to do more than one thing, but I don't think, I know that when you read that poem, and I know that when you're doing all this healing work with yourself through poetry, I don't think you regret it.
No, I do not. I'm very thankful for exactly how things happen. And I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I believe that it is motivating and it is encouraging other people. And I have had family and friends reach out to me and say that I am encouraging them. And that in turn encourages me. And I still believe that I'm still useful even as a physician, because last month I was actually dining at the Prohibition restaurant behind Mission Inn, and a fellow patron was choking, and I was able to step in and perform the Heimlich maneuver. And that's something I never had to do while I was actually practicing medicine while at a restaurant. I mean, I've saved a patient's life in the hospital, by performing CPR, but not outside of the hospital. So I thought it was interesting because I was like, Lord, am I still useful as a physician? Because I was debating on being on the medical team for my sorority at our conference. And I was like, I don't know, can I be helpful? Are my hands even useful? And that was my answer. Yes, they are. Yes. So I decided to go ahead and be on the team because I was able to help save her life, because she was literally about to go limp and pass out. And I was able to dislodge that by performing the Heimlich. And so that was reassuring for me, and that was a sign. But whatever your belief system is, I believe we all have a purpose, and we are all here for a purpose. And as long as there's still breath in your body, you can change your future and you can change your tomorrow as long as you continue to try.
Beautiful. Well, I got nothing to add to that. You've just been listening to Dr. Tiffanie Moore, my guest today, who has lived an inspiring life. I hope you got more than one thing out of that. And if you ever feel like giving up, just don't. Just follow her words, her advice, and her example and her story. Thank you so much. How do we find your book, FloweTry, and find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Tiffanie Tate Moore, or on Facebook at Dr. Tiffanie Tate Moore. You can purchase my book wherever books are sold, Barnes and Nobles. You can get it on Amazon, as well as Apple, iTunes, Kindle, ebook as well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming into my studio. I end every show with this little thing. It's all about balance, peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Thanks again, Dr. Moore, for coming on. You've been listening to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. Broadcasting live from my living room during the pandemic. I wish you the best day ever.
Thank you
tomorrow.
Have
Thanks
a great
again,
day.
Dr. Tiffanie.
Bye-bye.